This week on Shoe In.
And I always tell people, like, see a problem, solve a problem. So don't just
Yeah.
be like, oh, that's a problem. Like, yeah, great. We all see that, right? But like, how do we
Solution
solve it?
oriented.
Yeah, like how do we, okay, great. Great, Bob. How do we solve it? You know, like
Yeah.
congratulations. You nailed it. You figured it out. Hey everybody, welcome back to Shoe In Show. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. This week's just me and Christy, but what's cool about it is we're actually in the same office space. And I think this is the first time I've done a podcast with a person next to me in like
Side by side.
5 years, something like that.
Yeah, because we used to be in the studio way back when.
Yep, exactly. So it's been a while, so it's interesting. But today's episode is Ask Andy, I guess.
It's all about Andy.
Well, that's everybody. Please don't tune out just yet. Hold on just a minute. So
stay with us.
We'll see how good this is.
We want to learn a little bit more about the FDRA staff and what we do as FDRA staff, team members, all of that. So we're going to learn a little bit more about Andy today.
All right.
Andy is our Senior Vice President of FDRA. He is also the Executive Director of the Footwear Innovation Foundation. We always ask all of our guests what their shoe story is. So Andy, tell us your shoe story. What's your background? How did you end up with FDRA in the footwear industry?
It's interesting because I feel like so many people will share the shoe story and it's like my father was in shoes or I did this or somehow I'm one of those people who like fell into it. It wasn't like a family driven thing.
Yeah.
I came back from getting my master's degree. I moved back to Washington, D.C. and was looking for a job in trade or politics or international relations. And Matt Priest, who is the CEO, he and I worked together on Capitol Hill, like side by side. So he's one of the people I went and had coffee with. And I was just like, hey, like I'm looking for a job. If you see anything, like keep an ear out. And like 2 weeks later, he called me. He was at FTDC for the old Shoe Dogs who remember the event we used to do in Long Beach for traffic and distribution and customs folks. He called me from that event and was like, listen, like our vice president of comms is leaving. Like, would you want to come work for us? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know anything about footwear. Honestly, I really didn't. And he was like, I can teach you everything you need to know. And I'm like, great. All right. Well, yeah. So then when he got back, I went and sat down with him and we talked about what the job would be and like what my role would be. And obviously today it's a lot different than what it was. I don't know if it's 13 years or something like that. It's been a while.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's what it was. And I still don't know everything about shoes, but it also makes me a curious person. So hopefully people enjoy the podcast because I am very curious about how people make decisions with footwear and business and et cetera. But that's kind of my shoe story is I kind of fell into it. And I just happened to have Matt, who became my work wife once again in a different setting. It's a little different working on the Hill, working on those issues than working in the footwear industry. But I've loved it. It's been great. People are super nice. And I try to give as much as myself and effort to our events and to our members as they give to us. So that's kind of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. When I think about footwear, I think about you and Matt.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I mean, I'm like obsessed with like the business side. Like, I'm really curious about like how people make decisions. The free enterprise system is like unbelievably complex and wonderful. And Matt's the same way, but Matt is also a consumer. Like, he actually really loves the product. And I like shoes, but I don't think of it the same way. And I think it actually works for a team really well because we all approach it a little bit differently. And even like having someone like you or Sandy come in and think about aesthetics and style and fashion, I don't think about those things really. I think more about like technical things and how a consumer understands what we're saying or like how we look at a supply chain and like, is that really the best way to do something? And so our team is really well balanced in that sense that we have all that. But if someone's asking for fashion advice, don't call Andy. I don't have an answer for you.
You know how to get the answer, though.
I can point you in the right direction. I'm a great general practitioner doctor. I'll take the copay and then I'll point you to the specialist, but it is not me. No.
Well, talking about FDRA, tell our listeners a little bit about what the structure looks like, the team structure at FDRA looks like today, and how everybody works together. Like right now, today, we're at an on-site meeting.
Yep.
So we have the whole marketing team here, which is really cool because otherwise we're remote in our own different sections. But how does everybody work together? How has it changed? And how do we come together to support the industry?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I started, there were only three of us. It was myself, Matt, and Faith. And most people don't know who Faith is at all because she was our accountant. And she kept all the books and she kept all the compliance standards and all that. And then she retired. But before she retired, we initially, this Christie round one with Thomas came in. So we expanded slowly. And then today we've added a lot of different components and a lot of different folks to our team dynamics. They all do different things. Everybody has like their strengths and their weaknesses, like everybody. Like most people who may be listening, you work at a company where it is like kind of hybrid in some ways. We're fully autonomous. So everybody kind of works from home, or they like I work out of an office here in Reston, Virginia. And then we have an office in Washington, D.C., a WeWork space, and we have one in New York as well since we run Fannie. So we have these offices and we gather from time to time when we need to get in front of each other and have conversations about strategy. And, today you mentioned we're like really looking at like, is what we're doing connecting with the industry? Like we have all this really important information to give out to the industry, but are we presenting it in the right way? Is it consumable? Is it actionable? So we actually think a lot about those things. I don't know if people are surprised by that or not, but hopefully when they see the quality of what we're putting out and the ability for us to channel it even through this podcast and get information out, it takes a lot of work on the back end to do that. But the team's grown. There's been growing pains here and there. Like we're integrating new technologies. Obviously, like I remember we used to do webinars and it was on like WebEx or something like that. And it was like, we used to prep like weeks for a webinar, and now we're doing this podcast. I don't even know what questions you're asking. So it's like fundamentally different. I think we're just busy and running as fast as we can.
Yeah.
But trying to be accurate and actionable and responsible and responsive. And so the team dynamics have changed. The other benefit for us too is having events that actually, for a great way to have a touch point with our members and engage and learn from them. By being at events, it also helps get our team together. And during breaks and before and after we're doing setup, that's really where we can communicate and chat about what we're doing and be like, is this working? Should we try something different? Oh, this problem came up with this thing. How do we solve that? So the events allow us to get together and have that interaction. And then when we need to, we'll do these events like today where we get together and like really focus on strategy to help the industry and make sure that they're getting what they need.
Right, and catch up and see each other and be face to face.
Yeah.
Okay, one of my favorite things about you is that you studied in London. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And how it shaped the way you're very marketing savvy, but how it shaped the way you think about business, trade, the consumer today.
Yeah, I mean, my background's really interesting, and it was interesting.
Tell us about it.
Well, when I came into footwear, people were really curious about who was this guy with an international relations master's who worked on the Hill on defense and national security is now working in footwear. Like, how does that work? And it's a good question. But, I had a point where I was working on Capitol Hill for a member of Congress, and I had done it for about 9 years. And, I look at it now and it was great. And people are a lot more cordial. And the politics, it was still rough and tumble because I think politics is a contact sport. But you can at least sit down and chat with people about how you felt about things. Mm-hmm. It started to change a little bit towards the end, and I changed. I mean, I was, early 30s at that point. I'd done it for so long, and it's like 80 hours a week. Like it never stopped. So it started to grind too much, and I just kind of lost a little bit of passion for it, and I wanted to do something different. And I had this opportunity, and I applied to several colleges where I was working on international relations, trade, diplomacy, counterterrorism globally. And I just had these like curious, goes back to this. I was very curious about like gaps in my knowledge. I was working on these things. I'm like, I really don't understand the history of that, or like how that happened or how that worked. And I thought that actually this is where you would go back to school and get really good value to feed in. Because I really actually wanted to keep going into foreign relations and foreign policy and things like that. And so that was the impetus. And so I got into the London School of Economics in their international relations department. It's much harder to get into the Harvard. There's only 100 people who are accepted every year out of hundreds of thousands from around the world that apply to it. So I was really grateful that I had the opportunity to go in there. And the program was interesting. It's in central London. If you've never been by the LSE in London, it's great. It's in central London. So just living in the city that big, like I moved from a small town to a smaller town and then to DC.
Yeah.
So that was quite the experience. But moving from DC, which is a mid-sized city, I don't know, to London was like the experience, not just in terms of the academic, but just like the lifestyle and like living overseas. the language is the same, but it's also very different,
Yeah.
like how, like,
Picking up the dialect
yeah, that's just
and
like the slang and like different,
humor.
the humor's different. Everything's like a little bit different. And so that was also really interesting too, to like have that experience, be able to travel in Europe a little bit. But the program was interesting because they only selected a certain number of people from like the US, from the UK. They had people from Japan, China. We had people from Africa, the Middle East. And so when you were taking the courses, and I focused on China and the Middle East, which both of those are like really important right now. So I actually have deep knowledge because of this program. And I think it gives me an opportunity, like we did this oil report recently. It allows me to dive into my geopolitical kind of background and knowledge and apply that for footwear companies. So
Wow.
it answers that initial question, is like, what's this guy doing in footwear? Well, when two world wars are basically going on in Europe, world war, but when two big wars are going on in Europe and then in the Middle East, it kind of helps to know where your supply chains might have disruptions and issues and risks in a different way than businesses might see. But yeah, I drink a lot of beer, watch a lot of soccer matches, which is my passion. And I studied, I went from 80 hours a week to 60 hours a week. It was a 1 year program.
Wow.
I
Okay,
was
1 year.
reading, yeah, I was reading about 2 to 3 books a day during the program. So it is not
That's
like
a lot.
but
You're
I
still
mean,
working really hard, just
right.
20 hours less a week.
It's very, yeah, you're basically filling your mind and like
Yeah.
you're getting all this theory and practice and like history and like all these different things. And the breadth of it was basically like, war, diplomacy, economics, social movements, anything and everything that interacted countries and states cross border or regionally, power structure dynamics, et cetera. So it kind of changed. Like Congress was interesting because it's consuming so much stuff and trying to make sense of it and make policy and communicate it to voters. So I had that where I can consume a lot and like try to break it down in common stuff and send it out. This reworked my mind in a different way where it could be much more analytical and get, even better to the point or to where I think things are going. So that was the difference. Was
Yeah.
when I was in Congress, I was tracking like the here and now, short term. The LSE kind of unlocked my ability to like look into the future and say, what does all this mean and where are we headed, right? And I
Do
think
you
that's
think
just
that's
so
why you're
different.
so passionate about innovation?
I think so. I think so because it also is this thing in my mind. It's like, why do we keep doing the same things the same way?
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason, obviously, in business and in life and everything. But like there's got to be a better way forward. Like, what else are we doing if we're not trying to improve processes, make better product, have like technology advance things to make things easier to sell shoes, find shoes, source shoes, etc. So those are like the fun things to work on. And I think some of that balances the things that are not fun to work on, like tariff mitigation. Those conversations are a real drag. So it's always nice to have a balance where I can do some innovative stuff and say, wow, what is that? I wonder what we did if this is possible or not. Like, I don't know, but like it's
Yeah.
fun to think about something. And then, in innovation, what's interesting is like you're never going to get 100% of what you think, right? But if you can get 50%, if you get 40, if you get 10% of what you think, then you've advanced something. And I think that's really important. And I think it's lost on a lot of people who are kind of scared to try something. And I'm scared to try stuff too. I just know how to try it and fail forward without spending too much money. And I think
Yeah.
that's the key is like, and obviously we don't have much money left here. So we have to try things really cleverly and
Get creative.
yeah, see where we land.
Well, you're talking about, okay, so you have 3 daughters. You're talking about something, trying new things. How do you balance or, like talk about what you would talk about in footwear with them, but different, like teaching them life lessons? How do they cross over? Or do they?
No, I mean, they definitely do. I mean, it's also they're young. It's 9, 7, and then like 2, 2.5. So it's hard to like. It's funny because I'll say something and I'll try to impart knowledge, and then my
Yeah.
wife Kelly is just like, they're like kids, right? They don't understand what you're saying. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like I get it. And so it's actually in my, I pride myself on communicating really well, and they test that a lot because it's like, how do I explain this big concept to someone who, isn't in their 20s or 30s and have this kind of background or history or knowledge of these things? Like, how do I build you up from having no knowledge to giving you these stepping stones, right? And I think it is hard. And I think for me, luckily, I have a great partner, and my wife, is there doing a lot of the lifting and a lot of the empathy. I try really hard to be very empathetic
That's
and lean
great.
into that. So I try to focus on that. But for me, I know there's some people who want to impart things into their kids and be like,
Yeah.
oh, like I want you to do this. I really want them to find their own way and be happy with what they have. And I want them to have the skills to be able to cope with things go bad. And so a lot of it is like building self-esteem, building belief that they can do hard things.
Love that.
We have a thing in the morning before they go to school. It's called Polk's Pick People Up. And it's all about like giving back and making sure if your fin falls on the concrete, you go over there and try to pick them up. But also if someone's having a bad day, it's
Yeah.
like
I love
literally
that.
like be a good citizen. And I feel like if I can impart that and I can impart love to my kids and good citizenship, they'll get the training and figure out like what to do, but they'll have the ability to kind of navigate life, hopefully with a lot more better quality of life. I think there's so many
Mhm.
people who are negative and cynical, and I'm don't want my kids to get in that vein because I feel like if you get in that vein, it's hard to be creative, innovative, have a good life, have fun, like go forward. There's always gonna be knocks, but like my point to them is like something's always gonna happen and life isn't fair. It's how you look at it, right?
Great.
So if you have a positive attitude and you're like, this just didn't work out, but something else will, then it will. And so I think there's those kind of conversations we try to impart on them, just the basics.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Polk's
Folks pick
pick me
people up.
up.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so when I think about you, I think about marketing, making
Okay.
things stick, innovation. I think about you make me laugh all the time. I think you're really funny. I think you're a family man. What is your favorite part of FDRA and where do you think you stand out in the team?
My favorite part of FDRA. I don't know. I like our events a lot. I like working with our teams to build events. I
Yeah.
like the work itself. I like solving problems. I like getting on a call and helping like build our team members up and help skill them up and give them what they need to do their jobs and kind of mentor. So that's always fun. It's fun to see people succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love the podcast because I get to talk. So that's always fun. Sometimes I don't get to talk at home because I got
You got to
4
listen more.
women that are like control,
Right.
so this is my outlet, right? So I like the podcast.
Big personality. Love
Big,
it.
yeah, big person, exactly. But anything where I can get in front of someone and chat. People would be surprised though.
Yeah.
I'm still sort of an introvert as well. People won't believe that, but I do like recharge. Like I like having space because
Yeah.
the space allows me to think deeply about certain things and try to solve problems and think about the future. So I really cherish kind of quiet time and be able to think about and strategize about work or life or whatever it is, as much as I enjoy like hanging out with people and interacting and having. I'm kind of balanced in that way, but I think people would
I
assume
didn't know
I'm.
that about you.
Well, I think people would assume like this raging extrovert, and I am, but I also like recharge my batteries a lot. I need that space and time, and I value kind of that step back and think about something and solve a problem.
Yeah, I think that's
So
important. I feel like I'm very similar in that. Okay, let's switch a little bit back to the footwear industry. What do you think people are underestimating right now in the footwear industry?
what are they underestimating? I've been underestimating the consumer for like a year now. Like I keep thinking that these folks' wallets are going to run dry, and yet
Right.
they're buying footwear at a record pace. So I'm the first person to call out like my misses on certain things, but I think that's very surprising to me.
Yeah.
And I think the whole ball game, if you ask anybody, somebody's gonna
A
say
lot of
product.
research on that too.
Yeah, if you ask anybody worth their salt in footwear, product is king, right? And it is true, but you require someone to purchase that product.
Totally.
And so on the consumer side, I don't doubt we have great product in the market, and all these folks are figuring out different ways of importing and making shoes and moving shoes and marketing shoes and all that. And that's great. But the consumer ultimately, I think, is getting a little stretched. And I think it's the ball game.
Mhm.
The ball game is how much inventory as a brand I would move in, like price control, like our cost control, like how am I like looking at my supply chain? Is it fully optimized? Like everybody's doing that every single day, but at the one juncture you can't control in a world where we're seemingly not able to control much anymore, or waking up to that, is the consumer. Like, you put the right product on the shelf and in a normal environment, like it's going to sell at the right price, right product, right place, whatever, all those things that merchandising folks talk about. But that is my concern. Is I see rising debt and credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I see delinquencies. I see folks who are still spending, but are pulling back a little bit this summer because of high fuel prices.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hitting wallets faster and quicker than people anticipated, and it's creating a little bit of fear. So people are a little bit more hesitant. But that's my whole point. Was I missed it for the year. I've been waiting for this thing, and I'm not like trying to like conjure it out in the world for it to happen, right? Because I don't. No one wants a recession.
You don't want to manifest that.
I don't want to manifest it. I really don't. But I have to be. We all have to be cognizant. It's like how much of these sales this year, like just because you sold 100 million units last year doesn't mean you're going to sell 110 million units the next year. So like, where's the rub of where this is like timing the market, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in the stock market, you're like, buy low, sell high. Yeah, of course. But like at some point it goes so high, you want to sell so that you get your money back. Right. You can't just ride it all the way back down. And so I feel like a lot of that, the stock market mentality is in our inventory and our products and our consumers right now of like, at what point do they start pulling back, and how do I make that decision at the exact right point so I sell as much as I can, but I don't sit on inventory at the end if things do slow down. I think that's really hard, and I don't envy anybody making those decisions, but that's my biggest thing right now is like it's not the noise is oil and war and tariffs and all that stuff, but like the signal is the consumer right now, and it's like the more you can know about your consumer and the loyalty and the people who come back to keep buying your product, the better you can communicate with them, you can get the product right and all that, like the better you'll be, I think, long term. So that's what I think.
I love that. That's helpful. And FDRA has reports and resources for that.
Lots of stuff. We do a lot. I mean, obviously on the Tuesday call, which is our member call, Gary, our economist, runs through it. And Gary's great because he and I get to go back and forth, and I get to ask him really stupid questions, and he gives me the response that I should be asking, right? He knows what I'm looking for.
So much knowledge.
And we go back and forth on this, and it's like, how's the Fed rate increase or cut going to impact this? And what does history say? And sometimes, what's curious too is we use historical data, and we have all these, real-time reports. We have government data, we have insights from the industry, et cetera. But sometimes in the world today, historically does not look the same as it did 10 years ago that we may be judging against. And so there's a lot of looking at the data and saying, like, analytically, it's saying this, quantitatively it's saying this, but we got to qualify, like, what does that really mean in this environment, in this world that we're living in, that people are going through? That's where like behavioral economics comes through. But we cover price, we cover material costs, we cover supply chain costs, tariffs, all that kind of stuff. And our members kind of use all that information in their own unique way with their own unique product to make better business decisions. Mm-hmm. We don't, we provide like kind of a complex look at the whole marketplace, and then they get to choose how they use that information. But it's really valuable, I think, in this day and age to have that kind of second look, or that everybody has their own data, and that's great. And maybe exactly who your consumer is and who your product is, but it helps to see a broader trend of what might be coming around the corner that you just can't anticipate. And I think FDRA really does really well at that, of saying like, we did that with our oil report where like material costs are going to be going up. And then sure enough, like after 2 weeks after we put out the report, and even during, we had brands saying, I need information on this. My suppliers are saying costs are going up. So yeah, here you go. So like, we try to stay on top of those trends and give our members kind of a quick instant look as best we can to help them make decisions as they go forward.
Definitely. Well, you do a lot of mentoring for us, the FDRA marketing team, and you give us a lot of advice and build us up. What advice would you give someone who's looking to enter the footwear industry or build a career?
I think you need to be a problem solver. Mm-hmm. I think you have to, I see a lot of folks coming in as designers, and I think that's great. And we attract a lot of different talent. We have a ton of different types of jobs in our industry people aren't even consider. But I think today the way the workforce is like you're being asked to do 2 and 3 and 4 jobs.
Right.
Whereas in the past that may not have been the case. So you may be saying, well, I do finance. Yeah, you're going to come and do finance, but you may do finance and you may also have to help with supply chain or something else, right? So, or you might need to understand it. So I think you need to be someone who's willing to learn and be well-rounded and understand the structure of footwear, not just your own structure in your own department, but like how the other departments interact, and how those departments interact with the broader industry and consumers, right? You really got to understand structure. And this is the same thing when I teach college courses. This is what I teach them. The structure matters. Your internal structure, your own work structure, your business unit structure, your business, and then like how it keeps going out. You need to understand all those things. And if you can kind of get a good picture of how those things interrelate, you're probably a pretty well-rounded person. And then the second part of that is like, then you identify where the problems are, where the friction is. That's called value add, right? So you're like, oh, why does that go there? And it just takes too long. I don't know. Or like, why does that go there? There's a cost there. Like, could we fix that? And you start getting a little curious and start pulling the thread a little bit. And I think that's where successful people can make their mark, and anywhere, not just footwear, but anywhere, is like understanding the system and then identifying how that system breaks down in some way and trying to solve it and being bold enough to be like, that's a problem. And I always tell people, like, see a problem, solve a problem. So don't just be like, oh, that's a problem. Like, yeah, great. We all see that, right? But like, how do we solve it? Yeah. Like, how do we, okay, great, Bob. How do we solve it? You know, like, congratulations. You've nailed it. You figured it out. Like, that's obviously, it's like right here on the report, but what do you do about it? So that's how I think is like, people need to think about not just I'm doing this job, this is my responsibility. Like, no, like you gotta do that really well, but you also got to know how you're interconnected with other things. And by doing that, you start to add a lot of value and be successful in anything that you do.
That's great advice. Okay, so something we talked about with the team earlier and that Sabria suggested was to leave a question for the next guest. So what would your question be?
Oh, man, what would my question be?
On the spot.
Let me see. For summer, what is the shoe of summer 2026? Okay, I would like somebody to answer that. Like, if you're looking ahead, shoe of the summer, like I always think of like in the summertime, like I love music, but like there's always a song of summer, right? Like roll the window down. You're like, yeah, there's always got to be a shoe of summer. And typically it's like a running shoe or athletic shoe or something because everybody's outside doing something. But what is it this year? And what's interesting about the question is like, you asked that 5 years ago, it'd be some Nike shoe. It may not be. There's so many great shoes in the market now that people are gravitating towards. But what's the next hottest thing that's really going to take off this summer that's going to be like, and it could be athletic or it could be like a heel or some fashion. I mean, so I guess the question would be like, what is it for casual athletic? And then what is it for fashion? Like what are those two shoes in the summer that you think are really going to take off? That'd be my question. I
love it. We're going to ask the next guest that.
Who knows who the next guest is? Sorry, but that's the question.
That was awesome. Andy, I feel like we could have gone for another 30 minutes. It was
not the audience there, right? Hopefully they're still on.
You're still listening. This was awesome. Thank you so much for allowing us to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And hopefully,
any other. Well,
the takeaway of these two is like
drops.
Well, we try to be like really relational and really approachable and like really responsive. All the R's. So if people have questions about stuff, like we hope that they reach out and ask. Mm-hmm. If we don't know the answer, we'll tell you. We'll find someone who will. So we could definitely help. But we typically see some of the same challenges. And it makes our day to help someone do their job a little bit better, easier, and faster with a better chance of success. So not getting an email kind of makes me sad. So I would really like people to consider emailing us more and asking for more help so that we can let us do our job and help support your organization. If you're a member, if you're not a member, we're happy to talk to you too, because I think it is all about making sure that we're fighting for the industry in Washington, D.C., fighting tariffs, but also just helping people look at their business and look at the system with clear eyes and kind of clean up the muddy water a little bit to help them make better decisions and get more margin and grow and make better products in a better way. So reach out. We're here.
info@fdra.org.
All right. Well, that was fun.
That was fun. I love that.
Side by side. Yeah. But hopefully people are still on. You're going to get
a lot of emails.
Well, we'll see. This is a test case. We got other, I want to get other staff on too, but we want to make sure if people enjoyed this, you can always tell us if you enjoyed this, but we want to give a little behind the scenes look at FDRA and who we are. So.
Definitely. And if you are still listening and you're a listener, it would be awesome if wherever you listen, either rate and review us or give us a thumbs up on shoetube.org. it would mean a lot. It would help us out to grow the podcast and keep coming back.
All right. Until next time,
Shoe-in
is out. Sounds good.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.